Have you guys seen this DoorDash thread on Twitter? It has 37 million views.
And the funny thing is, I discovered it in the process of getting pizza DoorDash to my house. All right, so here's how it's gonna work. Maybe we can have some Jeopardy music or something. We're gonna go through 10 companies. I'm gonna give you the name and you have to guess what the company's effective take rate is.
Let's get into it.
So Boatsetter and Get My Boat have announced a merger, forming a powerhouse marketplace for boat rentals. Kyle, hot take time. Is this gonna get by the DOJ?
I guess this is kind of a monopoly.
So let's do this. It's a fun brainstorming exercise. I have a successful marketplace. Ben, what do we make at this marketplace?
Gizmo Forks.
Gizmo Forks. Okay. We're gonna front run the big fork and see if they're gonna hit their earnings, Kyle, based on the recent sales.
Fork you, CJ.
There's mostly forks. From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyer and CFO CJ Gustafson break down how modern companies make money, covering pricing, monetization, and benchmarks in ways that make you better at your job. Tactics and playbooks for finance, product, and sales operators looking to be the CEO of their role. This is Mostly Growth.
Welcome back to Mostly Growth, the #1 podcast for product monetization. How are you guys?
Living the dream.
Got all my bevies.
Benny's Beverages. So there's a viral thread that I just have gotten sucked into. Have you guys seen this DoorDash thread on Twitter? It has 37 million views.
It went bonkers. And the funny thing is, I discovered it in the process of getting pizza DoorDash to my house. No joke, from Sally's Pizzeria here in Connecticut. And I felt so guilty because I went and read it out loud to my wife, Caitlin, as we were waiting for the pizza, Kyle.
It's a Reddit thread that was screenshotted allegedly from like an early, I think, engineering hire. There's a priority delivery fee where you can pay $2.99 extra to get your order delivered first. And one of the things that was written by this person was that it's just a scam. They basically don't do anything. They maybe slow down regular orders, but they don't speed up your priority order.
And for the benefit of listeners, it starts off in the most like cinematic fashion. It says, I'm posting this from my library Wi-Fi on a burner laptop because I'm technically under a massive NDA. I don't care anymore. I put in my 2 weeks yesterday and honestly, I hope they sue me. I've been sitting on this for about 8 months, just watching the code getting pushed to production, and I can't sleep at night knowing I helped build this machine.
I mean, that sounds like an intro written by Hollywood. Like I'm excited to see this movie.
And what the person goes into is they say basically the algorithm is rigged against you, like you alluded to, but it's even more depressing. It goes into all the ways that it systematically tries to screw over the drivers and basically just grind them into sand and convince them to take the lowest paying orders.
37 million views, which is a lot these days for Twitter, considering I don't think Twitter has the engagement it used to have. It had so many views that like the CEO of DoorDash even had to respond. Like he put out a public response about this and what they were going to do about it.
Do you know what the kicker in all this is, Kyle?
What's that?
It's completely made up. It's written by AI.
Hey, this is some AI slop that actually it's like pretty convincing. If I knew AI could write this well or make up this interesting of a story, like I'd be using it more often.
Can I hire this to write my newsletter? Because this is
like I want to know this AI configuration.
But like you said, it went viral. It had components in this where it talked about a desperation score that they had invented apparently to figure out which drivers were willing to take like basically a $2 delivery, and it would optimize for those people. And it went through all the different ways that the system was stacked against you. It was very dystopian.
I think it sounded so believable because it really did sound like things a tech company would do. I don't know if you watch the TV show Industry. It's like one of my obsessions. It's newly back. There is a tech company on Industry where you're like, yep, they would actually do this. You could see DoorDash or a company like DoorDash taking some of these actions in the name of being more profitable.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because today I want to talk about how marketplaces monetize.
This is a fascinating topic, even for people that are not part of a marketplace, because really when you think about marketplaces, like a commission incentive is essentially a marketplace take rate model. Your real estate transaction is a marketplace take rate. Like once you start thinking in terms of marketplaces, it applies to just about every business, including all SaaS products.
It's also the oldest business model known to man. There were marketplaces on the plains of Mesopotamia, like for grain traders. Yeah, there were. I was there, Kyle.
Was this in the code of Hammurabi?
There has always been a middleman, and that's essentially what it is. We all operate in a business where there is some middleman element.
Let's sort of level set for listeners, because I think that people might think of these marketplace take rates as like there is a transaction fee that's just kind of standard. Like people know of Apple, the App Store takes a 30% take rate. Like that's very well known. Apps don't love it, but everyone's had to play ball until recently. I think these actually vary quite a bit across companies.
Kyle, you're completely right. People think that these are just arbitrary percents that are thrown out there, and they're not. And so I think there are 3 defining characteristics that I've identified that impact what you can, or rather should charge. And I say should because you shouldn't take all the money off the table, right? It actually alienates your customers, your suppliers, and it's not great for long-term customer value. But the formula that I've seen is that your take rate is basically a function of the purchase frequency, the purchase size, and the amount of labor and effort that the platform puts into making sure that transaction is a success.
Walk me through what you mean by that equation. So like purchase frequency, is it like more frequent purchases? Is that higher take rate? Like lower transaction sizes? Like what's the math on that equation?
Yeah. So if you think about something like Uber, that's a pretty frequent purchase, or DoorDash. These happen pretty habitually. But then you compare it to buying a house and you may go through Zillow. That's probably only going to happen maybe once every 10 years or something like that. Then you also have to take into consideration the size of the purchase. If you're ordering a $40 dinner on Uber, you're probably okay paying a 20% take rate on that because you're paying for convenience. The percentage sounds high, but the actual dollars are pretty small relative to your purchasing power. But if you think about the house on Zillow, paying 2% for a house versus 3% of a house, that is a huge deal. You're thinking about the actual dollar denominated weight of that.
See, I have a very different equation for take rates in my head. And maybe it's that you're more of the CFO and I'm the growth person, but I think of it as a balance of power question, right? So these marketplaces, there's usually multiple sides of the market, at least 2, one side being supply and one side being demand. And if the marketplace owns demand, they have a lot of power over the take rate on the suppliers, right? And so for Uber, it's going to be really hard for them to get riders on their own. Like they don't have their own marketing. That would be really expensive to set up. And so if Uber owns the demand, they could charge whatever they want, as long as, it's enough money for the driver to make profit on it. But back in the day, they didn't have enough drivers, right? And so they needed to incentivize drivers with a lower take rate until they had enough on the platform that they had that right balance of power. And so I think you're always kind of looking at those supply and demand dynamics. And I think that's hugely influential for what take rate you can get away with.
Take rate is essentially a measure of who wears the pants in the relationship. It's who has the most power. That's what it is, but it's not the quantitative factors that go into it, right? I think of that more as the output than the input.
Don't tell your sales rep that. What is he getting 20% of your
100%, 1,000%.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Here's a question. When was the last time you really had time to focus on growth and not chasing contract renewals, tracking shadow IT spend, or explaining rising software costs to the board? Yikes! The truth is, traditional spend management is broken. If you're still piecing together data from 5 different systems just to figure out what you're actually spending, while vendors keep on pushing those auto renewals and price hikes, my friend, I got a solution for you. That's where Tropic comes in. Tropic is an intelligent spend management solution that consolidates your spend data and processes into one unified offering, enabling insights and decisive action. It doesn't just show you where the problems are, it helps you solve them. From spotting hidden optimization opportunities like duplicative spend, to automating those painful procurement workflows, to giving you the best market data that turns every vendor negotiation in your favor. Tropic combines smart insights with real human expertise to keep you ahead of the curve. And I can say firsthand because I've used them for over 2 years. Their SaaS platform helps me with price checks. It helps me keep my calendar organized of when renewals are coming up and I can actually visualize it. And let me say, it saves me more than 10 hours a week on vendor management, and we've saved a ton on renewals. I'm walking into the boardroom with a lot more confidence. Isn't it time to turn your spend management into your competitive advantage? Visit tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics. That's tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics.
If you run go-to-market, you already know the problem. Your go-to-market data is everywhere. Ads, CRMs, sales calls, marketing, spreadsheets, but you're still guessing what to do next. HockeyStack is the AI platform for modern go-to-market teams that collects all your customer data and unifies it into a single system of action. Then you deploy AI agents that prospect the right accounts, help reps close and upsell deals, improve forecast accuracy, and automate what's already working across sales and marketing. Instead of running 5-year-old processes manually, your go-to-market team finally has agents that understand your ICP, your funnel, and your buying motion, and they execute on it. That's why teams like RingCentral, Outreach, ActiveCampaign, and even Fortune 100 companies rely on HockeyStack to cut through the noise, eliminate wasted spend, and make better go-to-market decisions faster. That's HockeyStack, the AI platform that helps go-to-market teams make space to think and win. Here's a growth tax nobody talks about. Every new monetization model you ship creates a nightmare for your finance team. Add usage-based pricing? Now you're tracking consumption against commitments. Launch product bundles? That's multiple performance obligations per contract. Offer mid-cycle upgrades? Woo! Good luck reallocating revenue manually. The irony is brutal. The pricing innovations that drive growth are the same ones that often break your finance process. But that's exactly where RightRev shines. RightRev is the revenue recognition engine built for companies that can't afford to let accounting slow down growth. Here's what most people miss, and I've come to deeply appreciate. Revenue recognition isn't just a finance problem, it's a go-to-market enabler. When your RevRec is automated, your product team can ship new pricing without asking finance for permission. And your sales team can close creative deals without worrying about downstream chaos. To get up on my CFO soapbox for a sec, I love talking about creative pricing models, hybrid pricing, credits, tiered usage. It's where real growth happens. But I've seen too many companies where the sales team is celebrating a huge quarter while finance is still trying to figure out how to recognize half of it and crying in the corner. RightRev lets you experiment with pricing without wrecking your close process. And honestly, in a world where your pricing model might change 3 times next year, that flexibility is everything. If you want to scale your monetization without breaking your books, visit RightRev.com. That's RightRev.com, where modern monetization meets bulletproof accounting. Kyle, are you down to play a fun game with me?
I am.
All right, so here's how it's gonna work. Maybe we can have some Jeopardy music or something. We're gonna go through 10 companies, 10 marketplaces. I'm gonna give you the name, and you have to guess what the company's effective take rate is, okay? So just for the benefit of listeners, if I say Airbnb, you're trying to give me the percentage. I'm gonna give you a range of 5% that you can be within, either high or low, man, that Airbnb effectively makes in a transaction. And keep in mind that they may charge both the supply side and the demand side, but you're thinking, what does Airbnb walk away with percentage-wise on each transaction?
Let's get into it.
All right, first marketplace I have for you. It's called Chrono24. They sell luxury watches.
Never heard of this in my life. I'm going to say 10%.
All right, man. Ding, ding, ding. It's 8%. You're within 5 percentage points. You're 1 for 1.
Yes. I'm using your equation. Like that sounded like a high ticket price.
Craps on my equation, then uses it against me. Upwork.
Maybe say like 15%.
It's 10%. We'll give it to you. Etsy. I think you know what Etsy is, right?
Etsy, the crafty market.
Yeah, it's super crunchy, crafty market.
I mean, you got to be nice to those independent sellers. Can't take too much from them. I'd say maybe more like 5%.
Wrong. It's 11%. It's higher.
Big buzzer.
Yeah, Steve, put in the buzzer. Make Kyle sound very wrong. Grubhub.
I'd say 25%. I think these like food delivery places gouge restaurants.
You're totally right. It's 22%.
Wow, I was going to say 30.
Man, this guy's good. All right, Super Bowl's coming up.
You're going after a pricing person here, CJ.
Yeah. SeatGeek, what do you got?
I don't know about SeatGeek, but I know Ticketmaster charges an arm and a leg. Like all the fees are just so exorbitant. It's crazy, and they're charging both sides. So I'd have to guess SeatGeek is kind of the same. I don't know. I'd maybe think like 40% for SeatGeek.
Too high. It's actually only around 23% these days.
Gotta raise prices, guys.
Ooh, this is a tricky one, and it's going to come up later in our talk, Kyle. Boat Setter.
I have no idea what Boat Setter does. I think you made up this company.
Rent luxury boats.
Rent luxury boats. 15%? I think Airbnb is like 12, so I'd guess like somewhere near Airbnb.
Boating business is good these days, Kyle. We're coming in at 28%.
Oh, damn.
3 in the right, 3 in the wrong.
Got overconfident.
Totally getting overconfident. I'm on my 4th coffee here. We're going to do 2 back-to-back. First, we're going to do Uber Eats, and then we're going to do Uber. Uber Eats, what do you think?
Like 25%.
22%. We'll give you that. Uber.
Heard of it before? I'd say Uber a little bit less than Uber Eats. I'd maybe go with like 20%.
No, dude, it's higher. It's 30%.
Higher.
Uber Eats is lower than Uber.
I guess they're turning a profit now.
Yes, that is how they got the profitability. There's the cool graph of all the quarters of when Uber was free cash flow negative. And then when they turned on, they basically increased their take rate by 5%. And it went up like significantly and they became like a cash cow. This is going to come down to the wire. We got 4 right, 4 wrong. This is a fun one. Cameo.
I think they were on the higher end. My guess would be somewhere like 40%.
25%.
Damn.
All right, Kyle.
Maybe they need to raise it again. I think they're unprofitable. Didn't they have a bunch of layoffs?
He literally just went through a fire sale. All right, last one I got for you. Kyle, you have a dog, right?
I do.
Has Chase ever been on a walk through Rover?
He has not, but I know of Rover. He's too bougie for that. He actually is just like too much of a rescue and has crazy anxiety. But the challenge with a Rover is that it's really easy to take that off the marketplace because like once you do a dog walk once with someone, if you like them, you would just like go directly to them. So I don't think they can keep getting away with a huge fee. I don't know, maybe 15%.
30%. You know,
well,
CJ is the champion of the take rate world.
I failed. So CJ, what is the highest marketplace take rate you've ever seen?
There are 3 that are extremely high that I've seen. One is ClassPass. That's in the 50% zone.
ClassPass takes 50%?
Yeah, it takes between 40 and 60% depending on what type of gym you are. Groupon has an effective take rate of 70% because they take 35 to 40%, but then also ask you to discount it by 50% on top of that. And the most egregious one is Shutterstock. And Ben can pull up the image that I sent them on that one. Ben, as a creator, what do you think of that?
Think that they're making a way more than $1 billion then.
They brag that as a creator, you can earn up to 40% on your own work.
They're charging corporates, right? And these photographers don't have relationships with like marketing people at the Fortune 500, right? And so like, how are they going to be able to sell these images themselves? Although that's a business that I cannot think is doing well in the age of AI generated images.
You're totally right. I bet they're getting crushed.
These take rates go up 50 to 70%. There's some greedy businesses out there, or we could say businesses with good business models. What are some of the lowest take rates you've seen? Like interchange fees on credit cards are like 2 to 3%, right? So if I feel like that's kind of the floor. Is there lower than that?
Open Table is the lowest. I think it's like 1% or 2% per guest. And I think they even moved it to like a flat rate of like $1 or $2 per guest that books on the platform.
They don't process the transaction. I guess that's just the marketing side. A little birdie told me of an even lower take rate.
Even lower? What's lower? Free?
A parts marketplace.
I'm under NDA, Kyle, so I can neither confirm nor deny that.
We've talked about real life marketplaces. Let's talk a little bit about like take rates in the real world. So outside of businesses that are kind of classic two-sided marketplaces. So some of them that come to mind to me, like recruiting agencies. That's not a classic marketplace, but they're taken on a service to help you find a candidate. What do they take? 15, 20, 30% of a first year salary, kind of a take rate fee.
Yeah, retained search, they have a 33% take rate, and they usually split it up into 3 payments of like 11, 11, 11.
We just talked about sales reps. And so normally we think in terms of like quota to OTE. A healthy business often looking for 5x quota versus the on-target earnings. But if you do look at the inverse of that, like that means the rep is taking home 20% of their quota. And so a 20% effective commission is pretty kind of market standard.
It's actually on the high side is what I've found. When companies get more mature, Kyle, you want your total effective commission stack to be around 20%. And that includes every mouth that you have to feed along the way. But yeah, when you're starting a company and you maybe seed Series A and maybe you're not making a ton of money yet, you do have to keep the reps head in the game.
I was doing some Googling. One thing I was curious about is fine art galleries. Like,
Ooh.
if you were to go spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a nice picture.
So this is like I'm buying $1 million Rembrandt.
Well, I don't know if it's Sotheby's exactly, but like you're going to a gallery in New York City and it's like a, great artist that's their work is like 50 grand for a painting or something.
Oh, and they sell it on consignment. I bet they make 3%.
3%? From what I found online, it's about 50%. And so they're taking half of whatever they sell it for.
and they're only getting half of it?
They don't have access to the rich person that's going to pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah. Dude, that hurts.
I think there is something about like the 50-50 that's actually easy to get away with. It's like, hey, we're both partners on this.
You take half, I take half.
That's why we need to put things on the blockchain.
But one article that I found really helpful back in my consulting days, I spent 6 years in pricing strategy consulting, which we worked with a bunch of two-sided marketplaces like B2B and B2C. And back then it was a little bit of like the Wild West of pricing. And then this guy, Bill Gurley from Benchmark, put out a piece called A Rake Too Far. This was like a viral blog post before there were really viral blog posts.
It's one of my favorites. I was so glad my Uncle Bill wrote this. He's not actually my uncle. The major theme in it is if you over-monetize your customer, you hurt the long-term value of the relationship and of your company overall. And he goes through all these examples of companies who went a rake too far, he calls it. So some of the words that you can call a take rate are a vig, the juice, or a rake. A rake is the term that comes from a casino. It's what's the casino's rake on every transaction.
Wait, what do casinos take?
It's a great question. It depends. They win 52 to 54% of the time. So their rake is usually 2 to 4%.
Sounds like they're not a rake too far.
It depends on what game you're playing. I think they say blackjack or baccarat has the best odds, but you can go through like the slot machines are like way not in your favor. I think they win like 70% of the time.
If you're setting the transaction fee on your marketplace, like we talked about, you could be an open table that's taking 2%. You could be a Shutterstock that's taking 70%. It's really hard to figure out where you should be. And it's really hard to figure out if you're getting past a tipping point in the business. And so I think for me, for a lot of companies, it really depends on like how much of a moat you have around your supply and demand. And essentially how hard is it for competitors to try to copy what you're doing? And then there's just an element of like your customers seeing you as greedy and just saying, hey, we're going to go off the marketplace. We're going to leave this. We're going to figure out a workaround because you're just too expensive.
And I picked out my favorite quote from this article. So he says, high rakes are a form of friction precisely because your rake becomes part of the landed price for the consumer. In order for your platform to be the definitive place to transact, you want industry-leading pricing, which is impossible if your rake is a de facto cause of excessive pricing. High rakes also create a natural impetus for suppliers to look elsewhere, which endangers sustainability.
Thinking about Ubers, right? The alternative to Uber is maybe a taxi. And in the early days of Uber, they were way more affordable than taxis. I think of it as I'd actually maybe pay a little bit more for an Uber than a cab, just like given the convenience of the app and the awkwardness of paying a cab. I hate that. Also, cabs like in Boston, if you tell them where you're trying to go, they ask you for directions, and I just like hate all of that. Let's just say the cab price is the, highest fee that you can end up charging the consumer. That puts a ceiling on the rake that Uber can take, because the floor is then what the driver needs to be paid, and they can take whatever sort of left there. But once they go beyond the price of a cab, they might just hurt overall demand for Ubers.
And if you think about how many times Kyle leaves the airport and needs to choose between a taxi and an Uber, yes, you could gouge him on that one time where there are no taxis and it's a higher rake, but you'd rather spread it out over more transactions over time to optimize the lifetime value. And if you do gouge him in that one example, then he's going to churn out the top the next time that he has the next best alternative. It's much more valuable to be the de facto place, the town square that everybody comes to, rather than to optimize for one transaction or one period of time.
Yeah, so there's a rake too far, but there's also things that companies can do to get a higher rake without it feeling like a high rake. There are certain metrics where there's a lot of price sensitivity, and then there's other metrics where it's just treated as like a separate budget, or there's less price sensitivity around it. Like we talked about with grocery stores, people pay attention to the price of milk. So even if it might not be a huge percentage of what they're spending money on, like they focus a lot on that price point, a lot more so than they'll focus on like the miso that they need for a random recipe that they're going to buy once every 6 months and then leave in the back of their fridge. With these marketplaces, there's similar concepts where you can maybe have a marketplace fee or a transaction fee. But then like in Uber's case, you'll have Uber One these days where you charge someone a subscription fee and then you essentially subsidize the cost of each individual ride. And so it makes the rides feel cheaper, but you're just taking money in a different way.
You're totally just taking money in a different way. And you can put a fee on a different side of the market that is a subscription or it's just a dollar denominated fee. And it all just plays out in the effective take rate of what you get. It's just on a percent.
You know who is brilliant at doing this?
Who?
Amazon. So a lot of people think of Amazon as a retailer. Like I would argue Amazon is more of a marketplace business than a retailer. I don't know how much of the business is through like their own retail versus the marketplace.
They bring their own product to the market.
Retail, I guess, meaning they control the price. It's in their warehouse. Like they have the direct relationship with the underlying supplier versus a marketplace being like the supplier lists it on their own and can kind of set the price at the availability that they want.
That makes sense.
Amazon on their marketplace, they've got referral fees, more of the classic take rate. I think the referral fees vary based on the product category, but are like 8 to 15%. But then, hey, if you want to sell through Amazon, you might want to have fulfillment through Amazon because then you can actually have your product marked as like a Prime benefit or eligible for Prime shipping. You might want to buy the seller subscription fee, which is $39.99 a month, which is like the fee for entry. And you can actually compare that against like selling on Shopify. Then there's advertising. Like you might want to promote your products within the Amazon listing so that you can sell more products through Amazon. And then there's all of these actually other fees under the hood too. And so the effective take rate might even be like 30+%. But the headline take rate is the 8 to 15.
Exactly. And I spoke with Erica Gessert, the CFO of Upwork on the Run the Numbers podcast. And what she was explaining is, yes, we have this 10% take rate, but if you want to put your product placement or services higher, you can buy basically credits to advertise. And that's your choice, right? Like you don't have to pay for that, but you can augment the way that you show up in a way that doesn't have a ton of friction and be one of the sponsored listings at the top.
We talk about layer cake strategy with vertical SaaS as often like starting as a system of record, adding payments, adding other fintech products, adding like a bunch of products. In marketplaces, it's often like you start with a take rate and then you add advertising fees or you add like a subscription or membership fee. Like you kind of have your own layer cake strategy.
So let's do this. It's kind of a fun brainstorming exercise. I have a successful marketplace. Ben, what do we make at this marketplace?
Gizmo forks.
Gizmo forks. Okay.
AI-enabled forks so that your fork knows how many calories are in whatever you're eating.
We have this marketplace. What are some services that we could add on to this, Kyle, to increase our revenue?
So we have all these different fork options that consumers can buy. We have suppliers that are listing on their promoted listings. And so if fork seller wants to be at the top of the listing page to kind of have a promoted ad, kind of like on Auto Trader, like you have sponsored listings normally at the top. That's something I'd pay extra for to sell more through the marketplace.
I got one for you. I'm going to charge the demand side now. We all know that people can choke on their food. It happens. It's very scary. I'm going to sell insurance. So you can add insurance to your fork purchase if you want.
So a consumer fee that's optional, kind of like if you're on like booking.com and you're buying an airline ticket and you can get like trip protection or something.
Right before this podcast, I registered for a road race and it made me check a box that said I declined to buy insurance to protect my $30 purchase. It's the same thing with the airlines. They make a ton of money off of that.
I'll take another one. Some of these forks are really hot, in demand, hard for consumers to access, and maybe we can charge the power user consumers a subscription fee that gives them like first dibs on any hot new forks that launch. And some other kind of bonus perks. They get free shipping, they get priority delivery. We can call it Gizmo Prime, charge $20 a month for it.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but we also sell collector item sporks, Kyle, all the way back to the Civil War.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy. People in demand, some of these are N of one. We will verify that it is truly the spork you think it is for an extra $15.
Well, then I have another idea. So now that we have this consumer side and we have these really high value consumers that care all about all this extra stuff, we can charge a higher take rate when one of these consumers buy your fork or spork compared to just a normal consumer on the platform, because we know this is demand that we have that's locked in, that's our Prime members. And so we can take more for these transactions.
So you introducing dynamic pricing? Is that what you're saying?
DoorDash, I believe, charges more if you want to essentially be on like a higher tier where you can unlock like customers that are further away from your restaurant. So if you want to like sell to customers that are like 3-4 miles away, you're going to have to pay a 25% take rate on that versus a 15%. Or if you want access to like Dash Pass members. So essentially like different pricing based on different kinds of purchases.
It's interesting because a lot of the people buying these forks actually run fork businesses, and they need SaaS software to run their fork businesses. We can sell them a module, Kyle, that is the core system of record to keep track of all this. So we can sell them SaaS too.
Well, so I have another idea. So now we have all of this search data on what kinds of forks people want.
Do it.
Let's sell an analytics package so that we can tell the suppliers, hey, here's more of the kinds of forks that you should be selling.
All right, I'm going to piggyback off of that. I hope this still counts. I know multiple marketplaces who monetize through selling the transaction data to hedge funds.
All ends up in finance somehow.
We're going to front run the big fork and see if they're going to hit their earnings, Kyle, based on the recent sales.
Fork you, CJ.
Ben.
I didn't have enough time to draw a logo, so there's mostly forks. All right, everyone, put down your cutlery because we got to learn about some reliable things that our sleepy little guys are reading at 2 a.m. CJ?
So I have a soft spot in my heart for completely random businesses that merge together.
I don't know where this is going.
Boat Setter and Get My Boat are the two biggest independent boat rental marketplaces. So like leisure's, like you go out with your friends and you want to rent a catamaran. So Boat Setter and Get My Boat have announced a merger, forming a powerhouse marketplace for boat rentals and on-the-water adventure. Kyle, hot take time. Is this going to get by the DOJ?
Just about everything gets by the DOJ these days, but I mean, yeah, I guess this is kind of a monopoly. It's a monopoly in something that's like not that big of a category, right? How big is this category?
Oh, this is way bigger than you think it is. Like, I don't have the actual...
How many people are out renting boats?
Is it like Turo for a boat, or is it you're also getting like the marina is also using this for like all those boats or something like that?
It's like Turo for a boat, but you can also hire a captain to go on it as well.
They also are getting into the experiences space against like a Viator or even like an Airbnb experiences then.
I did have the number. Outdoor recreation is now a 1.1 trillion economic engine, and the boat rental category alone is projected to reach 36 billion by 2032. That's a bigger market than just a couple of boats in a dock.
And so if they could take 10%, I mean, that's a 3.6 billion a year business.
But then you got to apply the 30% take rate as we went through before, right? So it's a 1.1 or something business.
I looked at this press release that you shared, and it says, together the companies become the global leader for boating and on-the-water adventure with more than $500 million in bookings across 50 countries. So
JP Mancini, a boat setter and Get My Boat owner in Miami, who has completed over 1,000 trips on the platform and earned more than 1.2 million. Good for JP.
If these guys were really going for it, like that pickleball private equity roll-up we talked about, they'd also own like Below Deck and be like franchising that everywhere. Like you just got to like be the media property for anyone interested in boating.
Can make this big. Well, I hope this podcast gets big, and I'll take you both out on my boat someday.
Electric boat.
We care about the environment.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Additional production by Steve Sarasoli. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe and give us 5 stars. It'll only take like 2 seconds and our algorithm overlords love it. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.